weapons, including handguns, shotguns, and rifles, were recovered just within the past few hours.
Over 1.5 million potentially lethal doses of fentanyl were seized, which is enough to kill everyone in Seattle twice.
Some members of the group were also heavily armed. In addition to the drugs and cash, we seized 18 firearms.
FBI and DEA raids governor's office. In Seattle, drugs, guns, and cash seized. In biggest crackdown, FBI and DEA agents just raided the governor's office in Seattle, and what they uncovered wasn't street-level crime. It was drugs, guns, and stacks of cash routed through government channels. This was the end of an 18-month investigation that traced Sinaloa cartel supply lines straight into state mailrooms, access badges, procurement systems, and official distribution networks.
Some of the most dangerous street drugs we know were given out in major quantities as if it were candy.
What agents found behind those government doors has shattered public trust and triggered a national security crisis, because the cartel didn't just infiltrate Seattle, it infiltrated the government.
You're looking at a fraction of the hundreds of pounds of methamphetamine seized by the Drug Enforcement Administration and partnering agencies.
This could have killed every person in every community in the Puget Sound region.
The moment federal agents hit the governor's Seattle office, the entire city realized something was terribly wrong. This wasn't cops chasing dealers under a bridge. This was the government being raided from the inside. The shield wasn't just cracked. It was being worn by the people putting poison into the streets. The betrayal didn't come from outside Seattle. It came from behind a government desk. When agents breached that office at dawn, they didn't find papers and policy binders. They found 8 kilograms of Sinaloa-grade cocaine, a 9mm handgun, and stacks of cash wrapped like it just left a cartel counting table. This was not evidence. This was inventory, stored, organized, waiting to be moved. And it was sitting in the same room where public programs, budgets, and community decisions are supposed to be made. That is not corruption. That is infiltration.
So this is a very significant bust, a very significant operation for the Pacific Northwest.
The person inside wasn't a random criminal or a stranger sneaking into the building. This was a state-appointed official with access badges, clearance codes, and the trust of the governor's own administration. Someone who was supposed to protect the public was helping to poison it. That is the kind of betrayal that isn't just illegal, it's personal. It is the type of betrayal that shakes a city from its foundation. And here's the part that hits the hardest. The cartel didn't break in. They didn't force entry. They were invited in through access, relationships, and quiet permissions. Seattle didn't just have a drug crisis, Seattle had a loyalty crisis. And the moment those doors came off their hinges, the illusion of safety came off with them.
Their investigation started 2 years ago, with undercover agents buying drugs in Tacoma, to their most recent bust in early August, which stretched across 11 different locations in the Seattle area. Not only seizing drugs, but guns and $650,000.
The cartel didn't take over Seattle with gunfights in the streets. They took it over with shipping schedules, delivery routes, and official clearances. They treated the city like a distribution hub, not a battlefield. And that's why nobody saw it coming until it was already everywhere. The Sinaloa network embedded itself inside legitimate logistics. Semi-trucks moving standard freight, shipping containers labeled as produce, warehouse deliveries signed off by people with real state credentials. On paper, everything looked normal. In reality, fentanyl and meth were moving through the same supply chain that delivers groceries, electronics, and school supplies.
Drugs and guns go together, and this group had an arsenal at their disposal.
The 37-count indictment includes drug dealers and a truck driver from Snohomish County, King County, and Mexico. While more than a
Ports in Tacoma and Seattle became the perfect cover. Too many containers, not enough inspections, constant movement. The cartel didn't smuggle drugs around the system. They moved drugs through the system. They didn't hide in the shadows. They hid inside official shipments that nobody thought to question. The distribution web stretched from Everett to Tacoma. Storage units, auto shops, rented garages tucked inside quiet neighborhoods. No flashing neon signs, no street-level chaos, just everyday buildings hiding a supply line capable of flooding an entire state with poison.
If you're on a boat full of cocaine or fentanyl or whatever headed to the United States, you're an immediate threat to the United States. And the president, under his authority as commander-in-chief, has a right, under exigent circumstances, to eliminate imminent threats to the United States.
And every move was protected by one thing: legitimacy. Nobody questions the truck with the permit. Nobody questions the office with the state seal. Nobody questions the employee wearing a name badge. That is how the cartel took hold, not with fear, but with familiarity. Seattle wasn't overrun by criminals. Seattle was managed by them. The federal response didn't start with a raid. It started with a death. One overdose in Tacoma, then another in Kent, then a cluster in South Seattle. Different neighborhoods, Different ages, same pill signature. That was the first signal. The poison was coming from one unified supply, not scattered dealers. From there, the investigation turned into an 18-month silent pursuit.
Well, the DEA tells me the Sinaloa cartel is one of the most infamous drug cartels in the globe. And since they've been designated a foreign terrorist organization, the DEA now has more tools to crack down.
Agents didn't kick doors. They listened. They traced encrypted Telegram chats, watched cash drops, monitored crypto wallets, and followed freight manifests that kept repeating the same pattern. Shipments arriving at the same warehouses, the same storage units, at the same times, routed by the same internal authorization codes tied to state office access. The cartel wasn't sloppy. They were organized. But the one thing they couldn't hide was the rhythm of their own system. Undercover buys confirmed what the data already suggested. Seattle wasn't the endpoint. It was the distribution center. The pills being sold in small baggies on sidewalks were the final crumbs of a pipeline that began in Mexico, crossed California, and terminated in Seattle's logistics grid. And every time agents mapped a new location, another branch connected. It was a network with intelligence, structure, and funding.
Our efforts to go after them.
This mountain of fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, and meth all seized within the last 10 days.
This year alone, we have 48% more arrests than we did at the same time last year.
And most of these arrests, says Oz, are those in controlling positions in the cartel.
The evidence lined up on the tables didn't look like a bust. It looked like a supply chain. 4,000 pounds of meth, sealed and pallet-ready for movement across counties. 260 pounds of fentanyl, enough to saturate entire regions. 23 pounds of cocaine, not scattered, but sorted by purity for different distribution tiers. The volume wasn't random. It was measured. Cash was stacked in bands, labeled, logged, and grouped for transfer. Not spending money, operating capital. The guns weren't trophies or stashed for panic. They were tools, rifles with conversion kits, pistols with extended magazines, weapons positioned for continuity of movement, not intimidation. This setup wasn't hiding, it was functioning.
We are seeing that we are going at a nearly non-stop rate for federal prosecutions.
As U.S. Attorney Tim Corshane says there's a renewed focus on more severe charges. And because drugs drive crime, the agency says this is a crucial step to keeping our state's streets safe.
Chemical drums sat alongside pill binding equipment, suggesting local finishing capacity, meaning some product was shipped ready, some was completed here inside Washington. Port documents, warehouse receipts, and route maps were arranged in the same office space where state business was handled. The shipment codes matched cargo logs at Seattle and Tacoma ports. The network was integrated, not adjacent. The conclusion was unavoidable. This wasn't street crime. It was infrastructure. A full pipeline operating under the cover of legitimate logistics, tied into the rhythms of city commerce, office access, and government permission.
With the crackdown designed to send a clear message.
We are coming for you. And my guys are not tired, and they're not stopping.
The network traced back to two operators known by their internal tags, Vodka 42 and Kaido 31. They did not appear in street-level surveillance. They appeared in financial movements, encrypted chat headers, and port clearance logs. Their presence existed in the system, not on the street. Vodka handled money flow, crypto mixing, shell companies, offshore accounts, and fast transfer routing through Delaware and Mexico City. Transactions moved in small, rapid bursts, designed to avoid pattern detection. Wallets opened, cleared, closed, and disappeared. The trail was always digital, never physical. Kaido handled distribution logic. He mapped warehouses, shipping yards, rental garages, and suburban storage blocks. He controlled which trucks moved when, which shipments blended into standard freight rotations, and which containers were pulled early or routed late. He didn't move drugs, he moved the timing.
They dealt in death in the form of drugs and guns.
This drug bust comes on the heels of an earlier takedown by law enforcement in March, where more than $3 million of drugs were seized.
We will continue to pursue drug trafficking organizations exploiting vulnerable populations and remove dangerous individuals from our communities.
Neither man needed to be in the room to run the system. Their orders were executed through layered communication channels and authorized by people who thought they were handling routine shipments. The system ran because it was structured to look official. The operators didn't hide. They embedded and controlled Seattle by flow. The timing of the raid was not random. The overdose map across Washington showed a pattern that matched the distribution routes uncovered in the investigation. Clusters in South King County, spikes along the I-5 corridor, concentrated cases near Everett, Kent, Auburn, and Tacoma. Different neighborhoods, same pill signature. The product moved exactly where the network moved.
These criminals did the worst kind of damage to our community.
Police accusing drug traffickers of targeting the poor and vulnerable.
They preyed on some of our most vulnerable, the homeless, the drug addicted, people who, in fact, deserve our compassion.
Medical exam data showed fentanyl as the dominant agent in recent fatalities. Emergency departments logged repeated cases of respiratory failure within minutes of ingestion. The pills were uniform in color, press, and scoring. Not homemade, not inconsistent. They came from a single manufacturing chain. The chain linked back to the same freight records uncovered in the port analysis. School districts filed internal alerts, not public statements, internal warnings. Multiple student collapses traced to the same pill type. Hospitals issued procurement requests for expanded naloxone supply. First responders began carrying increased dose quantities. The reaction matched the scale of exposure. The pipeline identified by investigators aligned with the death pattern on record. The distribution network was active and accelerating. The raid occurred when the rate of spread crossed the operational threshold. The timeline did not allow waiting.
Federal law enforcement are calling it the biggest drug ring takedown in our region in recent memory. The U.S. Department of Justice announced the takedown of 2 interrelated drug rings after a wiretap investigation led to the indictment of more than a dozen people.
After the raids, ICE began targeted detentions tied to the distribution network, while Seattle's administration publicly stated it would not cooperate under sanctuary policy, creating an immediate jurisdiction collision. Protest lines formed downtown, one side holding Sanctuary for All signs, the other holding photos of overdose fatalities traced to the same pill supply. Police controlled distance while both groups responded to the same event with opposing demands. Federal briefings described the case as internal infiltration of government channels, while city leadership framed the action as federal overreach, and neither position shifted. The divide did not emerge from ideology. It emerged from competing authority.
The Sinaloa cartel peddles this poison for one reason: to make money. In this case, we hit them where it hurt.
Digital forensics teams pulled data from seized phones, laptops, and car infotainment systems. The same encryption tag appeared across devices: Red Vein Protocol. The files contained warehouse logs, transit schedules, container IDs, and currency routing instructions. The system was not dependent on a single operator. It was self-replicating. After the arrests, new crypto wallets activated, new relay servers came online, and shipment requests resumed automatically. The network was designed to restart without human input. The cartel's infrastructure existed not only in storage units and ports, but in code spread across cloud accounts and offshore servers. The physical raid shut down the supply rooms.
DEA is announcing a historic week-long operation dismantling the Sinaloa cartel in several different countries. This operation resulted...
The digital system continued running. The response shifted to cyber operations to cut the network at its command layer, which means Seattle is not dealing with cleanup. Seattle is dealing with identification. There are officials being questioned quietly. Procurement logs are being re-audited. Badge access histories are being reviewed minute by minute to calculate who moved where and when. There are names that haven't been released yet. The case hasn't closed. It has surfaced. If you're still here, hit like so this doesn't get buried and subscribe so you see what comes next.